All right, Ogie, it is so nice to finally meet you face to face. We've been chatting on the phone and chatting via email, but now I'm actually seeing you, and you are just as gorgeous. Your personality and your face are just beautiful.
Oh, thank you. Likewise. I love that you both are wearing frames right now. I love to see really dope frames. So I'm like, oh, this is cute.
And I'm wearing them because I woke up and my eye was like this big old thing. I was like, what happened to my eye? So that's why I'm wearing my glasses. But I love yours as well. And you're rocking the head, the bald head. Not everyone can pull that off, but you were definitely making that work. It looks fabulous.
Thank you. Going on 7 years.
Really? So what made you do the big chop?
It was really when I moved out to LA 8 years ago, and I experienced what I feel was like the beginning of a rebirth for me.
Sure.
Um, and I just realized that like I didn't want the hair anymore. And
Wow.
I remember when I was making a decision to shave it, I was so afraid because for so long my mother had been me and my brother are first generation Americans. My parents are both Nigerian, and I remember
Nice.
just growing up, she just would always say like a woman's hair is her glory. So like I would get perms like every 4 to 6 weeks.
Oh my gosh.
And the more finer the hair was and the long and straight it was, the more beautiful I was. And so I
Mm,
remember when I made the decision to chop it and cut it all off, I was so
right.
afraid to tell her. But I was like, this isn't my glory. Like, this isn't all that I am. And so I was
Right.
just, all right, here we go.
Wow. Good for you. Good for you. Never look back. I'm so proud of you. Fabulous. That is awesome. So that leads me into the next question. This wonderful documentary, Invisible Portraits. First of all, the artwork is fantastic. We have to give credit to whoever did that artwork for you. It's beautiful. And how did you come up with the title? And tell me about the film and how it started and your process.
Yeah, so I'll tell you how the process started, and then I'll go into the rest. But the artwork was created by Trailer Park. I had hired Trailer Park to do our trailer and our artworks, and I've worked very closely with them in creating the trailer. And I don't know who the particular individual was who created the artwork. I need to find out who with the company, but Trailer Park is to be credited for the artwork. But about 3.5, almost 4 years ago, I had left a company that I had been working with for about 3.5 years called Rain Dog Films. And I was a producing partner there with the actor Colin Firth and his business partner, Jet Doherty.
Mhm.
Um, and after the making of the two films we did, Eye in the Sky and Loving, um, I decided to leave the company. And so I moved back to LA from being in Europe for about 3.5 years.
Mhm.
And in moving back to LA, I went through about 3 months of severe depression because I was just so confused. I couldn't really understand if I had made the right decision to leave this company and to move back and what was my next steps. It was very unclear to me in that moment what my next steps was, but I knew for various reasons why I had to leave the company. And I remember I was laying in bed and I couldn't get out of bed for about 4 weeks. Like I just was not eating, could not get out of bed. And I received a text from this woman that I met probably about 6 months ago at a charity event where basically we donated a certain amount of money to a charity organization and like they will withdraw your name at random to let you know what prize to claim. And one of the prizes that I won was to be able to go to this wolf sanctuary 3 hours outside of LA. And I
Okay.
met this woman at this event at the Wolf Sanctuary event, and we vibed and we exchanged numbers, and we probably hung out like no more than like 3 or 4 times after that. And she sent me a text randomly and was like, "Hey, I know this is really random. We don't really know each other, but I'm at lunch with a friend, and he has an idea about a film, and I just thought about you. Would you be willing to meet up with him tomorrow before he flies out to New York?" And it took a minute for me to respond because I was such in a dark space that I didn't want to meet anybody. I was like, not interested, not, no. But something told me to pause before I responded. And like I meditated on it. And a few hours later, I just texted back and said, sure, I'll meet him. Can't guarantee anything, but I'll definitely meet up with him. So the next day, I go to the peninsula and meet up with this guy. And I walk into this meeting and there's this middle-aged white guy, probably at the time Michael was probably in his mid-50s, and we do the formals, we sit down, and he starts to say, I was watching this YouTube clip where Isaiah Thomas was being inducted into the Hall of Fame, and I remember how the camera kept panning between him and his mother, and him and his mother were bawling and crying because he was just saying all the sacrifices that she made for him and how he wouldn't be where he's at today without those sacrifices.
Wow.
And he was like, I want to create something that celebrates Black mothers, because I feel like Black mothers aren't celebrated. And I was like, huh, like that's it? Like, that's why? Like, there has to be more to the story than that. And he was like, no, that's it. And I was like, okay, well, if I'm going to create anything or help you create anything, and in my head, I'm still thinking he wants me to produce it because that's what he knew me as and not as a director. I said, for me, it'll be about celebrating Black women and girls because we're that before we're mothers. And he was like, okay, if you can go away and create a pitch, if I fully love it, I'll fully fund it.
Oh, wow.
And I was like, oh, okay. But in my head, I'm still thinking, oh, I'm gonna help him create a pitch. We'll find a director, pull a team together and all these different things. And so a week later, I sent him the pitch and I was like, this is what I would create. And he was like, okay, I love it. I will fully fund it, and pull out a blank check and was like, how much do you need to make it?
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Are you serious?
Yeah. And I was like, wait, what? He's like,
came out of the blue. This was just the universe speaking. Wow, that's amazing.
but the crazy part about it was 6 years ago when I used to teach yoga before I got into film. I was in a meditation and I had this meditation come to me that I was going to create a documentary about Black girls. But I was like, there's no way. Because at that time, I had no experience in film. I didn't go to school for it. There was no desire to be in the industry. I thought at that time that I was going to help impact the world through teaching marginalized communities how to heal themselves through like the power of meditation and breath work. So when that vision came to me, I was very much so like, okay, girl, you're tripping, like for real.
Mm.
And so when the opportunity came back to me 6 years later, it took a while for me to realize, holy crap, like that was part of the vision that I had in the meditation. But yeah, that's how it all started.
That's an amazing story. Wow. I mean, that's remarkable. And it just goes to show you that it was meant to be. Like this person who didn't know you, you meet him and he writes you a check. And then is this your first directorial debut?
Yeah, it is.
Interesting. So how long did it take you to make this documentary?
Well, after I realized that I was going to be the one to direct it and that he wanted.
So you didn't want to direct it. You wanted.
I was afraid initially.
Of course. Yeah.
Like, you can go and make it. I initially said no because I had no idea how to really make it. Like at the end of the day, what I started to realize too is that we are all storytellers, right? And the technical aspect of directing is something that I had to teach myself, but also call upon my community of people to help me and to make sure that I employ people who are really great in their roles in the production that would also help lead and guide me and nurture me in the technical aspect of it. And so initially I said no. I was like, I don't think I can do this. Like I've never directed before. Like I don't know. And this is too big of a subject matter. Like I wouldn't want to do it a disservice. But through the support and encouragement of just Black women in my life, that was like, absolutely, you're doing this. Like if we all have to come together and put the full force of who we know behind you, you're doing this. And so a few days later, I came back to my investor and was like, okay, I'll do it. Like I'll do this, I'll direct it. And I asked I was like, I need time though. I need time to really understand what the story is. And so I immersed myself in research for 9 months, 6 days a week, 14-hour days, where I just basically read every book I could by a Black woman. I went to as many libraries and archive centers as I can and just immersed myself into the history of the Black woman's experience in America. And what I realized, I mean, so much came up for me in that 9-month period. I had to get back into therapy 3 months into it because the one day that I would rest, which would be Sunday, I couldn't get out of bed before 4 p.m. because I would just be crying. And I realized I was holding the weight of these stories, like reading slave narratives, reading about how Black women are experimented on, reading about the lynchings, and just, I was holding so much. And I knew that if I really wanted to be a clear vessel for these voices who I now consider to be my ancestors, I had to equip myself in all aspects on a mentally, emotionally, and spiritual level. And so therapy was one of those tools that I had to employ to get myself through this process. But yeah, and because so much came up for me. There were so many feelings of anger and rage, but also shame and guilt for not knowing most of these stories. but then I had to also give myself the grace and the space to realize that I wasn't taught this in school, right? So unless you go to college and major in African American studies, most people don't know this history.
Right.
And you know, for the most part, we are taught revisionist history in schools.
Absolutely.
And so when I understood that and really just allowed myself the grace to learn, but also to become a vessel, it allowed for healing to start to take place as well as the research.
Wow. You know, I totally believe that the ancestors speak through us. I really, really do. And the fact that you felt, you know, such emotions of guilt and, you know, sorrow and anger is just them working through you to deliver what you delivered is an amazing documentary. So how did you find the people to be portrayed in it? Are those your friends? Is that your family? Who are those women?
They've all now become friends and family. I didn't know any of them prior to this.
What? Oh my, no, I don't believe that. Because your connection is so like.
Yeah, well, the women in the documentary who are deemed scholars and experts, I think we're all that. But the women in the film who are deemed that were, sorry, that was my puppy, were people books that I read. So Dr. Joy DeGruy, Post-Traumatic Slave Syndrome, rearranged me in the most remarkable way. Dr. Patricia Hill Collins, iconic author and scholar. Ruha Benjamin, incredible scholar and author. All these women were women who books that I read that I reached out to on a whim.
Wow.
And like, hey, like this is my vision of what I want to create. Are you willing to lend your voice to this narrative? And I'm very, very grateful that they said yes. In regards to the women who are deemed like the everyday women in the documentary and the young girls, at the time I knew that I wanted this documentary to be as relatable as possible. And I made the decision at the very beginning to not use any celebrities.
Good.
And to use everyday women to voice our experience. Because I think people tend to see celebrities, there's a disconnect.
Right.
And I wanted it once again to feel as relatable as possible. And so at the time, I had my assistant look for various centers in LA that service the Black community, but also service Black women and girls. And I went into these various centers and I basically shared them my vision and what I wanted to do. But I fell in love with WLCAC, which is a center in Watts, who is under the leadership of Sheila, who is in the documentary. And I sat down with Sheila and just told her my vision. And Sheila was very honest with me. Sheila Thomas, she was like, let me be very clear. I think this vision and what you want to create is absolutely needed and necessary. And I am willing to support you in any way possible. But people come into our community, especially Watts or, you know, South LA, and they exploit our voices. And then we never hear from them again. So I will introduce you to these women and girls, but it's up to you to build rapport with them and for them to say yes. I can't guarantee you that they'll be a part of it. And I was like, absolutely. And so I came in and just got to know these women and girls. Like I spent time with them and I told them what my vision was, but I also made it very clear that me building rapport with them was bigger and beyond the scope of this documentary, that if they said no, this was a friendship for life. This was a relationship that I wanted to build for life. And, you know, after a few meetings, these women and these girls were all like, absolutely, I'll be a part of it. So that's how I met them all.
You know, it was meant to be. It really was meant to be. And, you know, when I watched your documentary a couple months ago, I was just, that's why I reached out to you, to be honest. Like, I don't, you know, someone here, I was at some event and then they were like, you need to meet Oge. She's amazing. And when she sent me your trailer, I was blown away. I mean, the trailer brought tears to my eye. And I've been doing this for like almost 20 years and I've seen tons of films. And, you know, you get a little jaded. It's like, okay, great. Yeah, I'll meet her, a filmmaker. Okay, whatever. Not in a mean way, but just like someone's always trying to connect me with a filmmaker. But when I saw your trailer, it touched my soul in a way that hasn't happened in a long time. And I've seen amazing works, shorts, features, everything. But the fact that you did this for us and about us in such a beautiful, authentic way touched my soul. And I said to myself, without even knowing you, I was like, I want to help. Whatever I can do to help the masses see this film is something that I want to do, because it didn't feel manufactured. It didn't feel it didn't feel fake. It just felt genuine, and it felt like it was who you are as a person, right? So every time we've spoken on the phone or emailed, you present yourself in a way that is very humbled and very authentic and very grateful. And that's something that you don't really see in this industry. And I hope that you stay that way, because it really is a beautiful thing and it comes across in your piece. So I salute you for doing this. And I salute you again for sharing it with the world, because it is remarkable. It really is. And I hope that, you know, your film gets shown in schools, in Watts, in South Side. Like, all schools need to show this film to young girls so they understand that they're beautiful, that they're worthy, and that they matter, and that we are not invisible, and you can be anything you want to be. So I just want to say that to you, that it touched me. It touched my soul. It really, really did.
Thank you. That actually means a lot, you know, because I mean, I also understand working in this industry can be hard. And it could very much so make an individual very desensitized to what's going on outside the bubble. And for me, I honestly don't identify as a director. I really identify as a storyteller, and filmmaking is the medium that I use. And I'm very grateful for that medium, but I like to keep myself very open to the various mediums of ways that I can empower people and educate people. But I also do understand the power of stories and the powers of filmmaking. So I'm very grateful to be able to utilize this medium to tell stories because they need to be told. And I'm grateful to be a vessel to tell these stories, but I'm also grateful for the support, because I mean, as an independent storyteller who's using this medium of filmmaking, it has been hard.
I'm sure.
To tell you that it has been very hard, because pre-pandemic, I had every studio and festival telling me how great the film was, but how they didn't know how to market it.
What?
And how they felt that the film didn't fit their development slate. So pre-pandemic, it was very hard, and I would get discouraged often. And the first two major film festivals that rejected my film because they didn't know how to market it really hurt. Like,
wait, stop. Wait, hold on. What does that mean? They didn't know how to market it. What? What does that mean? Like, what is there to market? It's
exactly.
It's
exactly.
So easy. Are you kidding me? Okay. You know what? It wasn't meant to be, and it's great that they rejected you, because that was a blessing in disguise. 100%.
And now I realize that. And the moment I did, now I realized that it was a blessing in disguise.
Absolutely. It's what you were saved from. I truly believe when things don't happen the way they're supposed to, it is what you are saved from. So whatever, we're just going to throw that away and look at you now and move on. But wow. So you're saying before pre-pandemic, there were studios who were interested, but they didn't know what to do with it?
Yeah, they were like, this is absolutely remarkable. This film is incredible, but what genre is it? We don't know if it fits our development slate. And now, post-pandemic, you know, I mean, everyone's like, oh, you have Black content? Let me take it all.
Oh,
but
well, yeah.
even with this, I've been very particular with the different studios and distributions who have approached us to become partners in distributing the film. And I've selected the person that I think is best fit for it, that I know that would nurture and care for it in the way that I deem fit. And so I'm grateful.
Wow. So how long did it take to do the whole thing? How was it? Years? Was it like how long?
Yeah, so it was 9 months of research and development.
Oh,
okay. And then production was about 8 weeks, but it wasn't consistently 8 weeks. So it was over the summer up until August. Then post was about a year.
Oh, wow. That's not bad. Well, good for you. So what's your hope with this piece? What is your hope that people take away when they watch this?
There's so many, right? I think that film serves as a channel for various people. When it comes to Black women and girls, my hope is that they walk away feeling seen and heard and knowing that they matter. Like, that is my biggest thing, because to me, the intention set at the very beginning that was held up and through post with my editor and just anyone who was involved, I had them set the same intention, was that this would feel like a love letter and meditation first and foremost to Black women.
And that's what it is. That's perfect. I love that. Make sure you use that in your marketing. That is a love letter. Yes, it is. Beautiful. Brilliant.
And that secondly, the film would serve as a re-education to everyone else. And so when it comes to everyone else that's outside of Black women and girls, my hope is that they see this as a starting point, as an entry point into the re-education that we need to have and discuss on a global scale about the treatment and existence of Black women.
You know, it's funny, a good friend of mine here has this great saying that I'm going to put on a t-shirt and I'll share with you. She says she has a PhD in whiteness and she just needs white people to get a GED in Blackness.
That part.
Isn't that brilliant? It is just, when I heard that, I was like, I'm putting that on a t-shirt and I'm going to have that at my festival because, wow. And your film will be not a GED, but a PhD for them to understand the trials and tribulations of women of color. So how big is your team? Just one last question.
My team now is just me and my publicist, who I had management at one point, but it just wasn't working out. At the moment right now, it is me and my publicist, Brenna, and her entire team at Narrative PR, who has shepherded me in this entire process and who has been so incredibly supportive. I could not have been where I am in this phase of it without them. They have just been absolutely incredible. Good. So at the moment, it's just me and my team at Narrative PR, led by Brenna Rifkin.
You know, it's great. And for me personally, I like small teams because it's easier to sort of manage and for accountability, right? And, you know, my advice, unsolicited, I'm just going to tell you my advice to you is, you know, stay true to who you are, right? There's going to be a lot of people who are going to want to, you know, be your best friend now. And, you know, they're going to see your star rising, but don't forget the people who were there for you when you had absolutely nothing, you know, because those are the people that definitely matter. And all the new people in your life right now, really make sure that they are doing exactly what you need them to do. And they are representing you as a brand the way you want to be represented, because that is very, very important. And for us, for women and for women of color, it is the circles like this big, especially in entertainment, right? And you want to make sure that the people you surround yourself and who are speaking on your behalf have your best interests at heart, because it's so important. And I wish you nothing but, you know, peace and love and success with this amazing documentary. And thank you so much for your time.
Yes, thank you for having me. Like I said, since the moment I met you, you have been so incredibly and grateful for the opportunity that our stars align to meet in this space. And I'm grateful for you and the festival, and just know that I will always continue to support you both. So thank you.
Thank you as well. I appreciate you.